Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Hannah. I'm the mom of two wonderful daughters, one who has a rare genetic disorder. Here is where I'll be sharing my experiences, some of the things that I've learned, and what my life kind of looks like as the mother of an atypical child. If you want to join the journey, please hit that subscribe button below. In this video, I'll be sharing the signs of developmental delay that I noticed as a first-time mum. Although I'll be referencing information on typical child development, I am not a medical professional, and what I know is based on my experiences with my daughter. If you're worried about developmental delays, please seek help from a medical professional. My daughter Mabel, she didn't really have any big red flags for developmental delay. Most of the things that I noticed were just small little oddities at first, especially before the 6-month mark. Around 6 months, Mabel got sick, and that's when her hypotonia really became obvious and her developmental delays were more noticeable. At the time, I still wouldn't have described them as big red flags. They still felt like yellow flags to me, but they were enough to convince me to go and seek medical help. Now that I've had my second child, I'm kind of noticing a few more things in retrospect, but even going back, I still chalk down a lot of the things to personality. Little sister is more of an active learner. Forget sitting there, she'll launch herself straight into it. Like, she can sit, but will she sit? Whereas Mabel is very visual. She loves to sit there and watch and look at things and listen before she explores. For Mabel's first checkup, I think this was the 6-week one, we went to the GP. The doctor found that she was early to track sounds, so the doctor would jingle the keys and she would turn from one side to the other following the sound. Mabel was also really early to laugh socially. She was about 7 weeks and she had this really deep, happy belly laugh. After that, I took Mabel to the child healthcare nurses. They're a little bit more specialized in pediatrics, so they're more experienced with babies than GPs are. In the first couple of months, a lot of the things that I noticed were things that I wanted to just keep an eye on. Mabel was born with ptosis in her right eye. She also had a preference for laying on her right side. My second bub also had this. I think it might be more environmental because of that. I am right-handed. The bassinet is on the right side of the bed, and both of my bubs have liked to have their head turned towards where I'm sleeping, which is on the right. So she got a little bit of a flat spot, which resolved really quickly when I made some conscious efforts to make sure that I was switching sides and handling her more symmetrically. The main thing I thought was odd really early on was that she had a very strong right hand preference. She almost always chose to reach things with her right hand as if she was right-handed. It wasn't like she never used her left hand. My partner actually didn't notice that she had a right-handed preference. Even now at 2 years old, she'll reach out and touch things first with that hand. Her right arm is stronger and less sensitive, and she untucked her thumb, so babies kind of go like this for a while, and her right thumb was the first one that untucked. That's just one of those little cute things babies do that you don't realize because they grow out of it really quickly. She'll also about half the time put her right hand palm down, and she usually will put her left hand palm up. So she kind of goes like this on the ground. Because of her flat spot at the 2-month checkup, we had another checkup at 3 months. It had fully resolved by then, and no other issues developmentally were picked up. At Mabel's 4-month checkup, the nurses noted a slight head lag. When I learned this at the time, I wasn't too surprised. Mabel had started off really liking tummy time, and she was really good at it. Then around that time, she just decided she hated it and didn't want a bar of it. So I'd kind of gotten a bit lazy with traditional tummy time, where you put them on the ground on their tummy to play, and we were doing mostly chest to chest tummy time. A lot of the time that I did that, I wasn't fully flat on the ground. I was kind of just at a recline. So I wasn't too worried either, because I figured with a little bit more conscious effort on my part, we could resolve that. The nurse wasn't worried about it. She gave us a little exercise to do to just pull from a laying position into a sitting position by Mabel's arms, and when I pick her up, to roll her onto her side and then pick her up that way, which kind of strengthens the muscles side to side in the neck as well. At Mabel's 5-month checkup, her head lag was completely resolved. It was around this time that I was seeing a women's health physio. I went to one of my appointments there, and there was another woman with her little baby around Mabel's age. I think he was a little bit younger actually. She handed him this crinkly book toy, and he just snatched it right out of her hands and was just sitting there just crinkling it and playing with it and really loving it. That really struck me at the time, because in comparison, I was just sitting in the waiting room with Mabel on my lap, and she was happily just looking around, minding her own business. I also realized even at home, she never snatched toys like that or grabbed toys really confidently like that. It was just another little yellow flag that I decided I'd keep my eye on. I also took some extra steps to hand her toys and to encourage her to grab toys, which she did do, and she really enjoyed doing that. But it was a little bit of effort to get her to reach up against gravity to grab things. It took a lot of coaxing. It was between 5 and 6 months where I started to get really concerned. Mabel wasn't sitting supported very well at all. She could roll back to front, but not front to back. And although I'd been trying very hard to increase her confidence with grabbing and playing with toys, she hadn't become more confident to reach against gravity. The thing that really threw my confidence in my instincts at that time was that she did reach up and grab things. While we were breastfeeding, she would grab my hair and play with my hair and my shirt or my hand. But I realized I breastfeed in a semi-reclined position, so she wasn't reaching fully against gravity, and her arm was kind of supported by my chest. And for some reason, these things made it really hard for me to get my point across. I think I just wasn't confident enough in what I was seeing. While I was trying to watch all of these yellow flags and looking for the confidence to really push my case, I was beginning to realize that her milestones were getting slower. She wasn't doing anything new. The last new thing that she did was put her legs straight in the air, and she didn't do anything else really new after that. When she was 6 months is when we started to have the lockdowns and restrictions and the kind of isolation start to happen because of the pandemic. So our 6-month checkup was changed to a telephone appointment. I had been really holding out for this appointment to have someone experienced look at her and listen to what I had to say and to check her over in person. So I was really devastated by this. But I figured if I could describe it on the phone well enough and the nurses were concerned, they would maybe get me in person. When I voiced my concerns, it was really hard to describe it, and that's when it kind of hit me how crazy and kind of flimsy some of these things that I was noticing were. The things that I was noticing were just these little oddities. They didn't even feel that important or that significant, and I just found myself unable to really put my point across about how important I thought that these things were. I left the call feeling unsatisfied. I remember feeling like they brushed off a lot of my concerns. One of my friends posted on Facebook their little 4-month-old sitting on a picnic blanket, and Mabel still needed me to support her under her arms in a seated position at 6 months old. As Mabel got a bit longer and a bit bigger, it also struck me how hard it was to carry her around. It just kind of felt like she was still 4 months old. I kind of figured it should be getting easier to carry her around because she'd be able to carry herself, like sit herself up when she was on my hip. I resolved to keep an eye on it for another month, hoping that maybe she would learn something new or something would change, especially since the sitting age bracket is like 6 to 9 months. I did a lot of research trying to find anything visual that could explain what I was trying to get across. I came across these videos on YouTube by Pathways. They have some side-by-side comparisons of atypical and typical development. I personally think that the typical developing baby is probably more on the ahead side of typical, and the atypical baby is very, very atypical. Mabel really wasn't as severe as the atypical baby, but she was a lot closer to that than she was to the typical developing baby. They show a lot of the tests that pediatricians will use, a version of the test to assess a baby's development. In their 6-month video, they have a test for protective extension. You hold your baby face down towards a surface and slowly tilt them towards it. Normally, a 6-month-old baby will put their hands out when you do that. Mabel didn't do this. Even while sitting, she would just fall face first. They also touch on anti-gravity movement in that video, which gave me a lot of confidence to finally express and push my concerns. Mabel got sick between 6 and 7 months. The GP really didn't think that she was sick. She kept smiling at him, such a little charmer. And it took a couple of weeks for me to finally get her on antibiotic. In the end, the dose wasn't strong enough or long enough, and we ended up in hospital. It impacted her pretty badly. She lost so much of her strength and endurance. This really exacerbated her inability to sit or to hold herself herself up, although she still would play with my hair while we were breastfeeding, and she still was consistently rolling back to tummy. She also rolled a couple of times tummy to back, although in retrospect, I don't think it was a very typical way that she was rolling, and it wasn't very consistent. At 7 months, I made another appointment with the nurses. They told me it would be a phone call again, but I got a call back and I was told to come in, and I'm still so thankful for this. The nurse could see what I was talking about, but she wasn't concerned. They were yellow flags for her as well. She did encourage me to go to the GP and get a referral to a pediatrician at the Children's Hospital. A pediatrician would know exactly what to look for. Thankfully, the referral got us seen within a month, and it was confirmed that she was developmentally delayed, and they told us she had hypotonia. In the initial examination, this was localized hypotonia in her trunk and arms, but Mabel's physiotherapist says it's a globalized hypotonia. In retrospect, Mabel had other things that were probably signs as well. I still kind of chalk it up to personality differences, but some of those things were she would just happily sit there in one position playing for a long time. She would just sit on her elbows and look around at everything. She didn't want to extend her arms to weight bear or anything like that. She didn't want to pivot around. Occasionally, she'd try to reach for things in front of her or beside her or bat at things. Mabel always loved books, so she would always reach for the pages and try and turn pages. I've taught her how to turn pages twice, but she's currently lost that skill and she's not quite at that level to relearn it again. Mabel didn't really engage with her environment. Like, she wasn't really interested in going over and exploring the legs of a chair that was nearby, or the TV remote, or your knife and fork and your plate. Things like that. Whenever she did touch things, she was very gentle and very careful, especially if it was new. She would rarely touch things spontaneously. At around 4 months old, she started saying na 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 for an hour in the middle of the night, and then she didn't do it again until she was over 13 months. She wouldn't weight bear consistently on her legs either. I've learned from Mabel's physio that this can be a sign of low tone, although low tone is a spectrum and it doesn't necessarily mean there will be developmental delays or that there's a neurological problem. Another thing was that Mabel didn't really play with her feet. She just watched them. She'd also only wave or bang things briefly, and she never passed toys between her hands. It can be really hard as a first-time mum to trust your gut instincts when you think something's wrong, because you don't really know what you're looking at and you don't really know how to talk about it. Even now with 2 children, I still question my instincts. I hope you liked the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up to let me know, and drop a comment below if you have any questions. If you're interested in seeing more videos about atypical life, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell below.